Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me tonight is going to be Tom Carey. And, we're going to be revisiting Roswell tonight. And as I understand it, I don't think he actually wrote the book Witness to Roswell, but if I understood everything correctly, he had some influence in it. And he's been doing a lot of research on the Roswell incident for many years. And as I understand, him, Don Smith, and Kevin Randall make up the Roswell Dream Team. So my guess is this man probably knows about everything that there is to know about the Roswell investigation, especially if he's been working with Don Smith and Kevin Randall, not to mention his own investigation. I'm going to let him tell you a little something about himself and also correct me if I was wrong about his participation in the book.
I did write the book.
Okay, you did write it. Okay, I'm glad you corrected me.
I wrote both of them. With Don Schmidt, yes.
Oh, you and Don Smith wrote them together is what it was. Okay.
Yes, I'm the lead author.
Okay, I got confused on that, Tom, and I do apologize for that.
And we only started working with, we worked with Kevin Randall back in the late 80s and early 90s, and then Don Schmidt and I teamed up in 1998, and we're still a team, and Kevin Randall has rejoined us, and we have brought in also 3 other people to form what we call the Roswell Dream Team for one last effort, consolidated effort on the Roswell case. Don Schmidt and I, of course, and then Kevin Randall has joined us again, and a fellow in Florida named Anthony Bragalia, who has written extensively and has conducted extensive research on Roswell. David Rudiak in California, who's an optometrist, a doctor of optometry. He's done the major work on the so-called Ramey Memo and historical aspects of the Roswell case. Very well-respected researcher. And the lone skeptic, well, we all have a skeptical mind, but we brought in a Roswell skeptic, Chris Rutkowski from Canada, and he is part of the team as well. He's not a debunker. He's a true skeptic. A true skeptic will follow the evidence trail and can become, change their mind, but he has a skeptical nature. So that is the Roswell Dream Team, which we formed last summer, and we have been working on the case day in and day out. Every day, well, we might take a day off on the weekend, but we are working assiduously still on this case because we feel that the case is, the witnesses are dying off, and most of them are gone, but we are still finding members of the 509th Bomb Group, which was the group involved in Roswell, still alive, and we are going after them. And as I said, it's one final big push to bring ultimate resolution to this case. We feel we have enough evidence, witness-wise, to win the case in a court of law, slam dunk style. But we're going after everything that we can, and we've assembled this team to do it.
Okay, and I'm glad you told me what you did because I've been to, I think you said it was Dan Rudiak or Rez. He's got
David Rudiak.
Rudiak. He's got that paper you were talking about that was in Remy's hand.
Yes, the Remy memo.
And he's deciphering it. I have tried to email him to invite him to my show, and I think his email has changed, and he hadn't changed it on his website. So now that I know you know him, maybe after this show, you can help me get in contact with him.
Yes, in fact, I emailed him today. So,
okay. Well,
I can get you that.
Cool. I'll get with you on that tomorrow, during the day sometime, after I get up and get the family fed.
Yeah, yes, I talked with Anthony Bragalia today, one of the other members of the Dream Team, and I emailed David Rudiak. We're discussing another issue relating to the Roswell case. We wanted to make sure we had all the Dream Team members in on it. So it's quite interesting, and we feel that we've assembled a great team, the best researchers in the field, and we are on the case.
Okay, well, real quick, before we dive into this head first, and I already have one question for you. Real quick, why don't you tell the audience exactly what got you interested in this Roswell investigation?
That's a very good question, a basic question. And I should preface it by saying this year I am in my 21st year of researching this case. And this is the only case I've been researching for the last 21 years. It's really the only UFO case that I'm interested in. And that all dates back to when I read the Roswell Incident book in 1980. I had been interested in UFOs. I'm a big fan of Donald Kehoe, one of the original proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Kehoe wrote many books, very good writer, and he got me interested. And I guess when I got to college and for a number of years thereafter, I sort of lost interest. Kehoe had died, and I guess the next book that really caught my fancy was in 1966 by a fellow named Frank Edwards. Flying Saucers, Serious Business was sort of a landmark rekindle interest type book in UFOs. The UFO phenomena has sort of hit a dead period in the late 50s, early 60s, and the book Flying Saucer Serious Business seemed to catch on, and that rekindled my interest. And in 1980, I had heard there was a book coming out about the Roswell incident. Now, I had never heard of the Roswell incident, and it was billed, about a UFO crash. I'm thinking, my goodness, I've read a lot about UFOs. I've never heard of this Roswell. And so I read the book, and I was blown away. I was blown away with the story about this little town in southeastern New Mexico where the spaceship had allegedly crashed, and there were wreckage, and there were little bodies, and the military moved in and covered it up and threatened people, and first said they had retrieved a flying saucer or flying disc, and then the next day they said it wasn't, it was a balloon, a weather balloon. I'm going, oh my goodness, what are they talking about? But I found the story so interesting that the subject of crash saucers sort of took over for me in the as far as the UFO flying saucer phenomenon is concerned.
You were hooked.
Yeah, UFOs. You have lights in the sky. You got abductions. You got crop circles. You got all that stuff as part of the UFO phenomenon. But for me, the material wreckage, saucers, nuts and bolts, flying saucers manufactured by somebody not of this earth is what caught my fancy. The other stuff, the abductions, for me, I'm not putting down because people are interested in that. I just am not one of them. But that doesn't, make them any less important. Same with things like crop circles and animal mutilation, stuff like that. That's all part of it. But for me, it's the Roswell incident. It's the best crash saucer story that we have, and that's what got me interested. I have a background in archaeology, artifacts, rather than myth and mythical things. So I'm sort of I have to see it, touch it, feel it. I've got to have that sort of
tangibility.
Yes, tangible, something, because all that, when they start talking mysticism and stuff like that, and they go right over my head, So, like the forward to our book says, or the acknowledgement page, or dedication page, whatever you call it, where it says, you remember the Dragnet series with Jack Webb,
yes.
Yeah.
I used to watch that.
Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. That's our investigation. That's our investigation. So, I'd say from about 1980 on, I was really interested in the crashed saucer stories. Len Stringfield put out a number of monographs. Len Stringfield was a researcher in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he put out a number of monographs about stories he had received over the years about people with information about alleged flying saucer crashes. Now, those are very interesting as well, except Kehoe did not do one thing. He did not reveal sources. So if you don't reveal your sources or who's telling you the information, your story loses a lot. You have to have names, dates, places, so you can verify it. Donald Kehoe, the first great UFO aficionado, one subject he would not touch with a 10-foot pole was stories about flying saucer crashes and bodies and stuff like that, because the so-called contactees from the mid-1950s, these were people who claimed to have been taken aboard Venusian scout ships and flown to Venus and Mars and Jupiter and back, and the great space brothers were peaceful and here to save us and all that sort of stuff. That had created such a furor of a negative connotation on the subject of UFOs that Kehoe wouldn't touch it. He didn't want to hear any of these stories. That was not his thing, because he felt it was too close to the contactee phenomenon.
Right.
And we're talking about the Howard Mengers and the what was the guy? He's buried in Arlington, of all things. He was I can't remember his name now, but one of the great contactees. They called him Dr. So-and-so, and he was really a hamburger flipper in California. The hamburger joint where he flipped hamburgers was near Mount Palomar. So somehow they
sounds familiar.
Yes, I can't remember his name now.
Oh God, it seemed to me like it was almost on the tip of my tongue. I could have sworn I saw his name in Nick Redfern's book, Contactees. More than likely. But that phenomenon, the contactees, just really poisoned the whole subject. And that poison is still with us today, because the mainstream media really doesn't like the subject of UFOs. Anybody in a professional employment, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, politician, somebody who depends for his success in part upon his credibility, the subject of UFOs is still poison, and they just run away from it. So that's because of the contactees from the 1950s, and people who still pop up and say, "Oh, I know some space brothers, and they've that's there's no way they're telling you this, and you're supposed to believe them, and it has really poisoned the well for serious. You have to go on their word and their word alone, nothing tangible.
It's their word, and that's it. And it's poisoned the well for the serious researchers, So I just do the one. I'm interested in this one case because it's so interesting, and so many people we have interviewed so many people. I interviewed 3 today, and it's a tough road to hoe because you're calling people up cold turkey. You don't know what you're going to get, whether they're going to slam the phone down on you or welcome you with
open heart.
Oh, yes. So that's how I got interested, and it remains my biggest interest outside. Keeping my home, my home running, my wife, my children, and that's. I have a whole office. I'm sitting in my home office here, and it's all Roswell.
My home office is in the middle of my living room. But yeah. Now James was wanting to ask if you think Roswell was the first contact between our government and an alien race.
Do I think that Roswell was the first contact between our government and an alien race? Well, I would say yes. That from what I know, and what I'm comfortable with. And you have to understand, Roswell occurred in July of 1947, which was 2 weeks after the beginning of the modern era of flying saucers or UFOs in this country. Up until that point, we had no history of, we might have had, sightings that people didn't understand what they were, but all of a sudden, in late June of 1947, we had this wave of UFOs. It seems like they just arrived en masse. And that's when it started. And so I would have to say yes. From what I know, now there could have been individual cases that I don't know about. I know there was one claimed for, Missouri in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, 1941 is claimed, but there's just, for me, there's not enough evidence for it. There may have been others that had occurred, but as far as our government knowing about it, I would say it was Roswell.
Okay. Now, this is coming straight from me. I know that a friend of mine, Sharon Parker, interviewed Frankie Rowe, and it's my understanding that I think it was either her dad or her granddad had actually either saw or heard military personnel talking about the actual, aliens at the crash site. Have you talked to her? Or do you know anything about that?
Oh yeah, Frankie Dwyer Rowe. Her father, her father was dead by the time the researchers got to the case. But her father was a fireman. He was a crew chief of the Roswell Fire Department, and we have two versions of the story of how her father got out to the crash site just north of town when this happened, before the military got there. One version that is told to us by Frankie was that the call came into the station of a crash out there that somebody had discovered, and his crew went out. And he was the crew chief, and they got there before the military got there, and before just about almost coincidental with a sheriff getting out there, or someone from the sheriff's department, because the calls into the fire department also went into the sheriff's office at the same time, and vice versa. So Frankie Rowe's father, Dan Dwyer, he told we get this for Frankie, and they got it from her father when he came home that evening, that he had been out to the crash site, and that he was struck by these bodies that he saw on the ground. There was wreckage, but he was struck by the bodies, these little bodies with big heads, strange eyes, and one that was still alive. So there was maybe 2 or 3 dead and one still alive walking around that somehow survived the crash. And, of course, they said, well, what did it look like? What did it look like? Well, it was, about 3.5 feet tall, 35, 40 pounds, very large head, very frail bodies, long arms, 4 fingers on each hand, and very tight-fitting, silky-type suits. And the next question was, well, did you talk to it, Dad? Did you talk to it? And he said, yes, I did. And the funny thing is, we were talking to one another. I was talking, but it was talking to me without moving its lips or its mouth. It was talking to me in its head. So today we would call that telepathy, right? Mental telepathy.
Right.
Yeah, because it was conversing with him in its head. And although Dan Dwyer himself was talking, it's answering him and talking to him in its head. And he said, "What did it say, Daddy? What did the being say?" And he says, "Well, in essence, the being told me not to worry about him or it, worry about it. That he accepted his fate. There was nothing anybody could do for them or the ship. That he and his comrades were accepting of their fate, that they were stranded. And it was at that point that the military came up and took over the site. So that's basically the story as told given to us by Frankie Rowe. The alternative story, which was given to me by one surviving member of the Roswell Fire Department, was that the call came in, but they were told not to go out, that it was a military matter, but that Dan Dwyer, Frankie's father, got out to the site on his own. That he had gotten out to the site on his own, under his own volition. And that's how we got out there. But the rest of the story is the same. So. Okay.
Now, pardon me, little frog in my throat there. There was a question in the chat room about some kind of an abduction beam that they want to know if you've ever heard of this beam. I guess most people abducted have reported either seeing or, I don't know if they were hit with the beam or saw it or what the deal was, but, they just basically wants to know if you ever heard of any such a thing.
Say that? You lost me on that. Okay. Say that again.
He said something about a blue abduction beam that he hears that people have been abducted. They report seeing a blue beam during the course of their abduction, kind of like a, BEAM would be the correct spelling. You're talking to the wrong guy about abductions, but I will say this, that abduction stories are, there's so many different variations of abductions. I am no expert in this phenomenon. Like I said, I'm a nuts and bolts type of researcher, and abduction stories are all, a lot of them are done under hypnosis. Some people claim it's sleep paralysis. I'm out of my element when people, start talking about abductions. I just can't offer an informed opinion. I just don't have one because I haven't really read a lot of them. I just don't find the phenomenon interesting, like the Roswell case. So right. I just can't. I can't offer an opinion on abductions. I don't think he was really expecting you to. He just wondered out of curiosity if you had heard about it. Not that he really thought you had, in other words. But before we go any further, I don't want to forget to mention that Tom's website is www.roswellinvestigator.com. You can find links to his book, Witness to Roswell there, and other information about him and Kevin Randall and their team and what they're doing to investigate the Roswell situation now. Also, for folks that are not in the chat room to ask questions, y'all might be listening at Shoutcast or somewhere. If you want to ask questions, you can call 832-632-7904. And if y'all would like to come join us in chat, the address is www.paranormalpalace.com. You do have to be a member to use the chat room, but that's free membership. It's just to keep the spam bots out so that people ain't trying to sell a bunch of stuff that nobody wants. But I wanted to make sure.
I'm not putting down any other phenomenon. It's just that we all have our different interests, and mine is Roswell. To me, it's the most interesting UFO case of all time, and it's one of the most interesting mysteries of all time. It's a mystery left to us from the 20th century that we're running out of time on, and we are determined to learn as much about it as we can.
Yeah, and I think it was Edgar Mitchell who recently started to try to come pretty close to blowing the cover off the whole case when he went back to Roswell and talked to people there that he knew as a kid and learned their what happened with them. As I understand, he went to a high up in the military of defense or we got a call coming in. Let's catch that real quick. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. I was the one inquiring about the UFO beams and stuff. I was just asking that question because back in high school, I got myself into a bad situation with some military people and got mind controlled and stuff. And the thing that stuck out with me, see, with fighter's eyes, I had fighter's eyes at the time, and with fighter's eyes, because I was a boxer at the time, you basically don't remember what's going on. Like your memory span is about like 2 minutes. Like something will happen, and 2 minutes later you'll forget what happened, and then later on in years in life, you'll remember like part of your memories that like a small fraction of something that happened when you had fighter's eyes. And the reason why I was asking about the abduction beams was because in my memories that I've gotten back, I've had memories of the abduction beam. Like when I was in buildings, it was like the UFOs, the aliens couldn't calibrate their abduction beam exactly right, so it would land within a few feet of me. And I have two different memories of this same beam, and the same size, same everything. It would land, like one time it landed right next to me, and another time it landed about 5 feet from me. But anyway, I have these memories of this beam. It was, and I was inside of a building, but it looked like in these buildings that this blue cylindrical beam that was about 6 to 8 inches in diameter landed next to me or around me, and I've never been able to find any documented stories of what the beam looked like in abduction cases, and that's the reason why I was looking to this individual to see if he knew anything about the abduction beam to maybe validate what I see in my memories as being real. Because from what I can remember from my memories, the beam was about 6 to 8 inches in diameter, and it was cylindrical. I mean, it was a full 3D type deal. You see like a cylinder, a blue cylinder, come down in front of you, and everything else. And in one of my memories, I have a memory of being around a bunch of different people, that blue beam coming down, and I see it, and then like 5 minutes later, I'm back, and the people around me was saying that I got abducted. I asked them how long I was gone, and they said for about 5 minutes. I have memories of this, and I need to find the people that was around me at that particular time to confirm this, but that's why I was asking him about the abduction beam.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you clarified that for us.
Okay. Well, have you heard any like first-hand accounts of the abduction beams that you know of that fit that description?
No, I have not heard any accounts, but my sense is that if these things are going on, and let's assume that they're entities from another solar system. Certainly they couldn't be from this solar system because this is the only inhabited planet. But you have to assume, because of the vast distances involved between stars and that they're just vast, that they have somehow overcome the laws that we understand of time and space. And if they have a civilization that's, say, a million or a billion years older than ours, I would have to assume that they can do anything. So when I hear stories of abductions, like strange things that they're doing, those sorts of things don't bother. I don't find offensive, because my sense is that if they can get here from there, they can do most anything. Abductions, right before people's eyes, that stop time, fast time. To answer your question, no, I haven't heard anything like your story, but my sense is that if this is really going on, that they can warp time, they can warp space, they can do anything. And I would say that have you gone to anyone for an explanation? I mean, of a professional nature?
Not yet. Because of my bipolar disorder, I'm a little bipolar. Have mood swings and stuff, which seriously border around grabbing a knife and killing someone when I'm really pissed off.
Where do you live?
Huh? Well,
what state do you live in?
I really seriously about killed a girl that I worked with one time because she was being a bitch.
I don't know if I want to get into this.
Yeah, well,
there's a little bit off topic, don't you think?
People, but they really don't have the experiences that I have. But a lot of my problem is that I know I got mind controlled back when I was in high school.
Hello.
And I don't know what memories are real and what memories aren't, because of implanted memories and such things like that. So when I was asking about the abduction beam, I've heard a lot of abduction stories, and I haven't really heard any physical descriptions of the abduction beam that that actually took them out into space and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I've heard stories of globules of light, things like that coming around and into a house and checking people out and what have you. Those sorts of things. That's why I say I think you know, if this is going on, the perpetrators, if it's really happening, can pretty much do whatever they want, and with you knowing it or without you knowing it. And so that's what you would be dealing with. And I think they can create things at their whim, whatever shape, size, color. Who knows what the purpose of them is? But they could pretty much do anything, and so I would tell you that I would seek certainly professional help, and if you don't get the answers that you're looking for, there certainly are people in pretty much anywhere that do research in this area. So, but I'm not that person. But
well,
there are people.
As far as I can say about professional help, I don't think I'm crazy. I just think I had something happen to me that I don't understand. Like I said, I was being mind controlled back in high school. See, I got into a problem. I was 2 years in boxing, and there was this kid that was ROTC, and he got me into a deal where in a class, the professor, which was Army, and he got me into a deal that asked me if I thought fighters were better or military guys were better. Well, I didn't know much of anything back at the time, So I said fighters are better. Well, it was my chemistry class. My chemistry class found out where my boxing classes were at, and he come up to my boxing class and started crap. And where we was doing boxing was at the National Guard Armory. My boxing instructor was 20-year military, and so my chemistry teacher was military, my boxing instructor was 20-year military, and my English teacher's husband was 30-year military, so I got my mind fucked with pretty hard.
Okay, James, that will not be necessary.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
that's
I got my mind
that's twice.
With. Anyway, I got my mind screwed with pretty hard, and I don't know. I'm just trying to confirm whether or not, because I don't know. I have weird memories of being taken to Army recruitment centers and all kind of different things, and I was just trying to get a confirmation on the beam. That,
I have a recurring. You're striking home there a bit. I have a recurring nightmare that I get it a couple times a year. I dream. Now I'm retired, right? I'm retired. I worked for 35 years, and I'm retired now. But I get this recurring nightmare that I've been somehow drafted back into the military. And I tell my wife, I say, I can't believe this nightmare that I have. It's so real. I even think in my dream that, I used to dream about this. So it's so real. And boy, I'm so happy when I wake up, because it's just terrifying for me to think that I've been called back into the military.
Yeah.
And what's stark about it is the dream is so real, and I don't know why I have them, because I've been out of I served 4 years in the Air Force, but that's been a long time ago, and but I don't get this, because I'm not thinking about going back into the military, and I keep having this nightmare. So, but what it means, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
Some of my deal is my grandpa. My mom and I live.
Is this going to stretch on for a while?
Maybe.
Well, you see, we're really kind of on the guest dime here, and you're talking about things that are a little off topic, and you're getting kind of distracted. And I was wondering if that would be better to save for a better conversation at a different time.
Okay, yeah. If you can hook me up with him later on, that would be great. I'll let you go. Like I said, I just got a lot of stuff in my head that I don't know. I don't know if it was mind control or what happened, but I got a lot of stuff in my head. So Yeah, I'll just if it's all right with the guest, I'll hook up with him later.
All righty. Well, I'll let him know.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
I have never had to go there before now, and I really kind of regret that happened. But I think it would have lasted on for an hour or two if I hadn't.
Well, we take all comers.
Well, actually, in this particular case, I know who he is. He's trying to get his own show, and he does have an interest in paranormal.
I've met Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell actually wrote the foreword to our book.
Oh, yeah.
To Roswell.
Back to that, Edward Mitchell. Have you actually talked to him about his talks with his...
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, it's Edgar Mitchell. Sorry, I said Edward. It's Edgar Mitchell. And I guess I talked to him 2 years ago, and when he was down...
Are you still there? Oh, no. Hello? Hello? Folks, I'm not sure, but I think we may have gotten disconnected. Y'all give me just a minute. I'll try to fix this. Yes, we've been disconnected. Let me call him back. Not exactly my night, I guess. Huh. Oh, wait, he's calling back. Hello, Tom?
Yes. I don't know what happened.
I wasn't sure. I was just fixing to try to contact you back, but somehow got dropped there, didn't we?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Regarding Edgar Mitchell, when I spoke with him in person, I wanted to find out what who his sources were about Roswell, and he wouldn't divulge those. But I understand he's maybe talking a little more now about those. So I got an email yesterday. I haven't read it yet. It was about Edgar Mitchell, and my concern was he mentioned that he got interested in Roswell after he'd gone to the moon, and he was doing speaking engagements around the country. And he's originally from the Roswell area, Artesia, New Mexico, where he grew up. And he said that when he went down there after his trip to the moon, that it was at a time where the ranchers and the people that were becoming elderly, were starting to talk about the Roswell incident to him because they trusted him, and him having been to the moon, they figured, well, he would be more open to listening to them, and that's where he heard his first Roswell stories from people who trusted him, and he trusted their judgment and their veracity. And that's where he became interested in this, and he said that he has spoken to military people who knew about it, and he has seen documents relating to the Roswell incident. And certainly his opinion is that it was a real incident, just like we say in our book. And I wanted to find out who his military sources were, but he would not divulge them to me. Now, this was a couple of years ago. So I got an email this week that he might be being a little more forthcoming in revealing some of his sources. I haven't read the email yet, but I have it right here. So anyway, like I said, he did he was gracious enough to do the foreword to our book. George Noory did our afterword. And the consensus is that our two books, Witness to Roswell, first and second edition, are the best books on Roswell ever written. So that makes me feel pretty good, having written it. So anyway, like I said, we are still working this case assiduously, and I am as interested today and as energetic today as I was when I first got started on this case, 1991.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So I know I'm doing something that I like, and whenever I either find new information or a new witness, I still get a chill down my spine when I hear it. You know, when I get new information or find a new witness, I still get a chill down my back when that happens. So it's truly a labor of love for me, and certainly the others who are on the Dream Team, the Roswell Dream Team. They are in a similar mode as I am. It's a difficult investigation. Case is 65 years old this year.
Yeah, most detectives would say that's an old dead case.
That's a cold case. That's
yeah.
A cold case. And let me tell you, this is really a real cold case, because it's 65 years old. You know, they have this TV show, Cold Case File, or Cold Case Files, and they always find witnesses just all too anxious to talk. Well, that's not the case here. There's nobody coming forward. We have to find them and locate them and get them to talk. And it's finding them and locating them is the easier part of it, stress-wise, because you're looking up names and numbers on the internet and trying to locate somebody. The hard part is actually dialing the number and waiting for someone to pick up the phone. And it's amazing. These days, nobody answers the phone anymore. They all have answering machines, and nobody answers the phone anymore. It's very rare that you get someone to actually, a live person, picking up the phone. So
and that drives me nuts.
Yeah, so you're left to just leave a message, and I would say 24 out of 25 messages that you leave don't get answered. You rarely get a call back, because you have to identify yourself, tell them why you're calling, and leave a callback number all in 10 seconds. And they rarely call you back. So it's a very, very difficult investigation. We've had people over the years, they come up to us, I want to help you. Let me do so. I want to help you. Give me something to do. So we give them a bunch of names to call. We never hear from them again. When the rubber meets the road, they can't make the call. It's too intimidating for them. To call somebody up cold turkey to ask about UFOs, they can't do it. So I know myself, when I know I have to make calls, which is basically every day, I have to give myself a pep talk, psych myself up to do it, because it's still, after 21 years, it's still difficult to some degree for me, even though I have my approach sort of down pat. The rejection rate is high, so you're a little, taken aback or fearful of being rejected. But I psych myself up to do it, and it's a very difficult. Very difficult.
I was going to ask you on that. Have you actually had any new results that are, I know you maybe say you talked to some new people. Have you gotten new information that's helped out with the case and, gotten us any further than what we were before?
Oh, for sure. Here's the thing, Royce. What you'll do is, you'll make 10 calls, maybe one or two actually has information. And what we're getting so far is nothing startlingly new, other than this week I did speak to someone whose husband was at Roswell. He's dead now, but it was his wife I was talking to, and she said that when this happened back in July of '47, they lived off base outside of. They lived in Roswell, out off the base. They were married, and they lived about 7 miles from the base. So she would drive him into the base every day. They had a sticker in the car, and so they would go she would drive him into his duty station and then go back home and then pick him up at when his shift was over. Well, she said that when this happened for 3 days in a row, he wasn't allowed to come home and she couldn't get on the base. They wouldn't allow her on the base, or then they wouldn't allow him off the base. So we've had people over the years tell us that the base went into lockdown. When this happened, the base went into lockdown. Now we have additional confirmation that yes, the base did go into lockdown, and it was for 3 days. And I figured out which 3 days it would be. So on the surface, it doesn't sound like much information, but it was a little key to a little part of the puzzle. That the base actually went into a lockdown. They kept people out, and they kept the military guys in, and that would be I have those days. I know which days those were. So that's just a little something I found this week.
Well, I think it's interesting that a base would go on lockdown just behind.
For a balloon.
Yeah, for a balloon found out in the desert. I mean,
yep.
Nothing sounds very secretive about that, or top secret.
Well,
kind of strange.
These mogul balloons. That's what the military now says it was. These high altitude balloons. They didn't recover those. I mean, wherever they landed, there was a little written note. They gave a number to call. Well, at the time of the Roswell incident, there were 3 of those balloons that came down. One in California, one in New York State, and one in Circleville, Ohio. And each one made the local newspaper, in these towns where they came down. Each one was found by a local. One was a farmer, and and there was no hubbub. It just everybody knew that it was a balloon, and in only one of those cases did someone from the Army go out to retrieve it. And he took a look at it, and he says, "Oh, do you want to keep this?" They said, "Oh, sure." So I said, "Yeah, go ahead and keep it." Well, that's the same balloon the same type of balloon that's in the famous Ramey photo. Roger Ramey kneeling beside this balloon and radar target in his office when they're saying, "Oh, folks, the rancher out there in Corona and the people at Roswell, this is what they mistook for a flying saucer," and they see the balloon and the radar target on the Ramey's floor, General Ramey's floor. Well, that was the exact same thing that came down in these 3 locations I just told you about. Why did nothing happen in the other 3 locations, but at Roswell you had this big operation to recover weather balloon, threatened people, flights coming in, doctors coming in, all this activity going on, when in the other 3 places it was no big deal. Just that's a balloon. Keep it yourself. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, now I did hear from Noe Torres that there was another crash site. I want to say it was Corona, not far away.
Who did you heard from? Who?
Noe Torres. He was on my show, 2 or 3 years ago, and we talked about his book. I think, if I remember correctly,
I know.
The other Roswell.
Yes. There are 3 locations that belong to the Roswell crash. Back when the first book was written, the Roswell incident. Everybody knew about the one site who's ever investigated this, the site near Corona, where this Corona, New Mexico, where the thing apparently blew up in the atmosphere and rained down all this wreckage down on the Mac Brazel's sheep pasture. That's the old J.B. Foster Ranch, also called the Brazel Ranch. That was the first site. Well, back in 1980, the only other story they had at the time about bodies was an alleged crash of a flying saucer 150 miles to the west of the Foster Ranch near Socorro, near Magdalena, Socorro, New Mexico, on the plains of San Augustine. And that was the old Barney Barnett story, just a story about a soil conservation engineer from Socorro who claimed to have stumbled upon a crashed flying disc with dead bodies out on the plains of San Augustine, 150 miles to the west of the Brazel Ranch site. Now that was the alleged crash site for the Roswell incident in the 1980 Roswell Incident book. Well, our research has taken that Socorro, Plains of San Augustine piece out of the Roswell story. Didn't happen. If it did happen, it happened at a different time. It had nothing to do with the Roswell incident. But we have identified 2 additional sites relative to the Roswell crash, besides the Foster Ranch. When the thing blew up, we believe, we speculate that it was struck by lightning, and for some reason it blew up. Who knows why, but it blew up. But the inner cabin apparently was the only thing that survived the explosion, and that went on for another. That traveled through the air for another 30 to 35 miles, coming to rest just north of town, 30 miles north of Roswell. That's what we call the impact site. And only a few people have been to that site to identify it, myself being one, Don Schmidt being the other, and a local archaeologist in Roswell being a third party that knows where that's at. That's where Dan Dwyer, remember I told you about the Dan Dwyer story, that's the site that Dan Dwyer went to, either in the fire truck or his own car, and talked to the one alien that was alive. That's the impact site. In between those 2 sites is a third site. It's not really a crash site, but it's a site where Mac Brazel, according to radio announcer Frank Joyce, who told us the story, that's where Mac Brazel, the Corona rancher, found something else. And what he found on that site were body parts. So we call that the D. Proctor, which is a local, at the time he was 7 years old, a local boy who was with Mac Brazel the day he found the wreckage. He also found this other site where these body parts were, apparently they were blown out at the time of the explosion and fell at this site. We call it the D. Proctor body site. And so those are the 3 sites that we have identified for this event. And we're pretty sure on those. And everything we're getting as far as, new witness testimony just confirms the scenario that we have laid out in our Witness to Roswell books. So that's what we're getting. We're getting confirming testimony from new witnesses to the framework for this event that we have already established. So that's gratifying to us because when we started this, when Don Schmidt and I started this in 1998, we figured, well, geez, what more is there to learn? Well, it turns out there was a lot to learn, and we're satisfied that we have established what really happened there, times, places, people involved, what took place. The only thing we're missing, well, there's two things we're missing. One is physical evidence in the form of spaceship wreckage. A piece of it. We have a half a dozen stories right now about where pieces might be, and we just don't have the resources to travel around to examine these further right now where they might be. But we do have about a half a dozen or so stories about who might have a piece of the wreckage, that they kept all these years in the family. We know that some families must have, because the ranchers got out there first. Whenever there's a plane crash out there in the desert, say in New Mexico, it's always the ranchers that get there first before the military.
Right.
And some of those ranchers, no doubt, pocketed a piece or two, and they still have them all these years later. But so far, they haven't shown any inclination to give them up. But we've heard stories about this person or that person having a piece.
I heard a story on the web not long ago about a guy that went in a bar in Roswell and heard a story about someone that had buried some crash saucer parts somewhere not far from that bar, not far from the crash site. But I was never able to reach anybody to confirm it.
Well, if you got any names, certainly I can check it out. We heard a story just before last July when I went down. Don Schmidt and I are always a speaker every July. This past year, Kevin Randall joined us down in Roswell. And the week before I left, I received a call from a woman in Deming. She lives in Deming, New Mexico. She said that a week or two before, she had been in Roswell, and she went into this restaurant called the Cowboy Cafe. And in there was this this elderly couple. I don't want to say old. This elderly couple. And the gentleman told her a story that he used to work on the base and blah 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 blah, and that he was told that if you go down to the fairgrounds, the Roswell where they have the fair, and just at the front gate there, if you off to the side, there's a little fence line. There's two little rectangular, he called them grave markers. And this is this is his story. He says there's two little grave markers. They've been there since 1947. And I understand that that's where two of the aliens that crashed in 1947 are buried. Well, whenever we get a story about physical evidence or bodies, we have to check them out. We have to check them out because you never know. So I said, and she told me where to look for these grave markers, and so when we were down there, I took Kevin Randall into going out to find them. Here we are, two old-time Roswell investigators. We're going out to the fairgrounds. Well, I had trouble finding the fairgrounds for starters. And we could not find it. Well, it turns out that we had gone on the wrong end of the fairgrounds. Instead of that, we had been at the back. We should have been at the front. So we're walking the fence line, and where are these things? Well, we finally located them. They were near the gate. Just happened to be the wrong gate that we were looking at, and. And there they were. There were these two. They were more slate. They were not concrete. They were slate. And I'd say they were about a foot and a half wide by around 2.5 feet long each. Two flat slate pieces of stone. The texture and color of slate. And I'm saying, well, that's got to be what she's talking about. And so Kevin, cleaned it off. I took pictures of them. I record everything, so I took photos of them. And there they were. They were slate. They looked like little grave markers. There were no markings on it, but they just looked like they were two rectangular slabs. I'm thinking, well, if they were alien bodies, why would they bury them there? And why would they want to bury them anyway? They would want to keep them for study, I would think,
Yeah, you'd think you'd want to find some way to preserve them before they decompose.
You'd want to preserve them for study. Well, why would they bury them in the entrance to a fairground? So that's going through my mind. Well, Kevin, he found a little. Apparently, someone had thrown a little flowers, and he picked up a little flower, like a little rose. He put it on the gravestone in memoriam, just in case, So we didn't have any tools with us, and we didn't want to start digging up, without any permission. So we went back to the UFO museum where we were speaking, told Don Schmidt about it, and the director of the museum. And before we left, the director of the fairgrounds came by, and Don had arranged that when the museum closed that day, everybody was going out to dig up those two markers. And because we did that much for it, well, let's go the whole way. Let's see what's there. So Don and the director of the museum and the director of the fairgrounds, Kevin and I were not going out. We had been out there once. We weren't going again. And so Don, Julie Schuster, the director of the museum, and the gentleman from the fairgrounds, out they go. And you know what was buried under there? They took the slabs off. There was just cables, electrical cables. Was all that was under there.
So y'all were being set up?
It was a setup by whoever was at the Cowboy Cafe. I don't blame the woman. She was just passing along a story to me that someone at the Cowboy Cafe, and we will find out who you are, had told. So, but it shows you what we go through. I mean, one time Don Schmidt and I, Don lives up in Wisconsin, I live in Pennsylvania. We had a story from another investigator who lives in Roswell that a family member of his who was a plumber had come across in doing some plumbing in this old house in Roswell, had broken through a wall to get to the pipes, and in the wall was a hollow space that he pulled out an old Army footlocker. You know what they look like? They're painted olive drab and, an Army footlocker. He says, oh, what do I got here? So the story is that he opened the Army footlocker, and inside was an Army hat, an old Army hat, a .45 automatic pistol, and some strange pieces of metal about the size of the palm of your hand that you could wad up in your hand, and it would wad right up, and you could let it go, it would flatten right out. Classic description of memory metal that we've been looking for over 20 years.
Yeah, that was something else. I heard that there was some memory metal that was recovered and in civilian hands. Would that be accurate?
I'm unaware that any has been recovered, unless you have a story.
Well, it's something I read on the web. It may not be accurate now. I didn't mean to say it was accurate.
It's the holy grail of Roswell that we're looking for, which is the memory metal. Now, I am unaware that any has been recovered. If you've got a story, I'd like to hear it, or if you can find it, email it to me, because I am unaware of such an occurrence. But anyway, Don and I said, well, we got to go to Roswell to check this out. And so Don flies in from Wisconsin, I fly in from Pennsylvania. cost money, you know. And we went up to this woman's house. Our investigator in Roswell said that the woman who owns the house actually lives next door to it, and she rents it out. So we went up to the house, knocked on the door, and told her who we were, and she invited us in, and we're talking in there. And Don is trying to set her up, to gain, put everybody at ease, put the woman at ease, and so we're there talking, and Don's still setting her up. An hour has gone by, and I finally said, "Look, Mrs. So-and-so, the reason we're here is that we heard this story. We've flown a long way to look into your neighbor's house that she owns. And well, fortunately, the renters were gone. They were out of town. So we all went in down to the basement, and she says, as you can see, this wall has not been broken into. There's nothing amiss here, and this wall has not been broken into. So what it was a story that the plumber, the relative of our source in Roswell, dreamed up at a family get-together and told them. The result was Don and myself spending a lot of money to fly to Roswell to look in this wall and look into the footlocker that didn't exist. And you want to hear air going out of a balloon. That's what it was. There was no broken wall. There was no footlocker. There was no memory metal. And I can't say that we felt stupid because we had to do it, but it was a real. It cost us a lot of money, to make the flight. And but those are the sorts of things that we do, and it's not easy pickings by any means.
Yeah, but it is kind of frustrating, isn't it?
Very frustrating. Very frustrating. I would say we've made, all of us, when you add it all together, we've made thousands of phone calls. And I would say we have a very small percentage of the phone calls that we have made have actually borne fruit. But we've gotten enough that we basically have the story. We have hundreds of witnesses, first, second, third hand, who have told us little bits. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle that you put together, maybe with 100 pieces, And each witness that does tell us something gives us a little piece of the puzzle, and it's our job to put the puzzle together so it forms a picture, and that's what we do.
Okay. Well, one of the things I was thinking you could brief everybody on was this here writing that was in General Ramey's hand, because as I understand, Mr. Rudiak or David has actually done some film on it, and he's been able to enhance it, and he's been able to actually read bits and pieces of the note.
Yes.
I'm not sure what everybody here listening knows about that, so I thought you could fill them in.
Yeah. The so-called Ramey memo is what we call the smoking gun of Roswell as we speak. It's the smoking gun of Roswell. And what it is, the Air Force, when they recovered this flying saucer, put out a story in the press that they had recovered a flying saucer. They used those words. Well, the next day, actually that afternoon, the same afternoon, they changed the story to that they misidentified a weather balloon. It wasn't a real flying saucer. It was a misidentified weather balloon. Now you have to understand that the people of the 509th Bomb Group was the elite unit of our military at the time. It was the only unit that was nuclear armed. They were created during World War II to drop the atomic bomb, and their mission, even after the war, was to deliver the atomic bomb. Actually, the 509th Bomb Group still exists today at a different base in Missouri. But in 1947, it was still around just to deliver the atomic bomb in time of war. It was the elite of our military, and we're to believe that they could not identify correctly a rubber balloon and a tinfoil kite, which is what the weather balloon or apparatus was. It was a neoprene rubber balloon attached to basically a silver tinfoil kite for radar purposes. They would launch them to track the weather currents. So, on the afternoon of July the 8th, 1947, this is the same day that they already put out the press release that they had captured a flying saucer. They changed the story, and General Ramey, Roger M. Ramey, who was commanding the 8th Air Force in Fort Worth, Texas, Fort Worth Army Airfield, later called Carswell, he held a press conference that they staged, that they put a rubber weather balloon on the floor, and they ripped up a tinfoil radar target, and they took 7 pictures of General Ramey, 2 by himself. Let's see, 6 pictures. 2 by himself, 1 with Jesse Marcel alone, 1 with the base weather officer, Irving Newton by himself, and then 2, Ramey and his adjutant, Colonel Thomas DuBose. So, in one of the photos taken of General Ramey kneeling by the weather balloon with with Colonel DuBose sitting next to him, you can see that he's holding in his hand a telex. It's a telex or a memo. And in the series of pictures taken, you can see the progression where it's folded, the memo is in his hand, folded over once, folded over a little more, and then in the last photo, you can see it's folded up three times, where it looks like he was trying to read it between photos taken. But in the last photo taken, the face of the memo is facing the camera, and I would say that the camera is about 10 feet away. Well, back in '47, we didn't have any technology to enhance that memo that he's holding in his hand. Well, in the '90s, we now have computers and photographic software. You know the story, and I know myself. I have photographic software that I use to make pictures and put them in my computer and print out hard copy pictures, et cetera. Well, you can adjust the software to enhance the image. And I know I tried that myself. I've spent hundreds of hours on the Ramey memo, and I can only get so far. David Rudiak, being an optometrist, he has a better photographic software than I do. Plus, he's a professional. So David Rudiak has been able to read a good portion of the face of that Ramey memo that's facing the camera. And I know myself, when I first looked at the Ramey memo with my photographic software, within 10 seconds, because I didn't know what to expect, I figured that the photo would have to do with something regarding the Air Force, something regarding perhaps the 8th Air Force, to which Ramey was the commanding officer, and possibly, something to do with the Carswell base, something along those lines. Other than that, I had no idea what it might say. Well, within 10 seconds, I was able to read the victims of the wreck you forwarded to the blank, blank, blank at Fort Worth, Texas. So victims of the wreck just jumped right out at me. Now, what sort of balloon, short of, say gigantic hot air balloon with a gondola underneath, which it certainly wasn't. What sort of balloon has victims? None that I know of. And usually when the military talks about military injuries, they call them casualties. They refer to not victims, but casualties. So if it was like an if it was, say, an airplane crash, they would say casualties of the wreck. They would say casualties. They wouldn't say victims. So this term, victims of the wreck, just jumped right out at me. And in the next line, I could see the word disk, D-I-S-K, in parentheses. And further down, I was able to see what the term weather balloons would make. And you look down, and they're obviously talking about having weather balloon demonstrations, which they actually had the next day. They started having weather balloon demonstrations around the country the next day to explain not only Roswell, but all UFO reports at the time. They were trying to kill the stories about UFOs by saying that people were seeing these weather balloons, which was a bold-faced lie. But that's what they did. So the Ramey memo, we reached a point where we can't get any more information out of it because of the noise, the so-called noise, the grain that you see in the photo. Because it's an old picture. It's taken by an old speed graphic camera, and it was taken at some distance from the memo itself. So by just continually enlarging it, all you're doing is enlarging the grainy noise as well, and you can't get any more out of it. Now, what we're trying to do is that we have been in touch with the company that did the work on the Shroud of Turin. You know, they did a lot of image enhancement. You know, the Shroud of Turin, which is supposed to be the I don't know what you call it, the shroud they put over Jesus, you know, after he was crucified.
Right.
And someone from that company believes that they can get more, they can really clean this up, this Ramey memo image, clean it up to get more of the sentences, the words and sentences out of it. Problem is it costs a lot of money, which we don't have right now, but that's the reason we haven't done it so far. But that's what we have in mind for the Ramey memo, to get more out of it, to sharpen it up so that there can be no ambiguity. In my mind, there's no ambiguity for the words victims of the wreck that you forwarded to something at Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, I agree.
I also see weather balloons in there. Weather balloons would make, and
well, that's just it. Weather balloons were never manned, to my knowledge. So, how would an unmanned weather balloon have victims?
They can't. And it's obviously, and the word disk is in there, D-I-S-K. So they're obviously talking about the Roswell incident.
Makes me wonder if there was a case where maybe weather balloon caused the disk to crash, and they just mixed it up to cover everything up.
I think Carl Flock, who's passed away a couple of years ago, he was the Roswell debunker. I think that was one of his speculations, that perhaps a weather balloon crashed into something, and that's how they got balloon parts there, and that's how they got wreckage of some sort of craft. And I just don't buy that.
No. I mean that there was an actual saucer crash, but that maybe there was a weather balloon that was up at the same time as the saucer that may have been the cause of the crash, and they could have both went down together. But when it was reported, they wanted to cover up the saucer, in other words.
Well, the thing is, the crash occurred around midnight, so they wouldn't have had any balloons up at that point. Yeah, they send the balloons up during the day, and they can walk, they explode, and come down. And there weren't any balloons up at that time. It was around between 11:30 p.m. and midnight that this happened. So, no, and the balloon itself in the picture, it's the dark object underneath General Ramey's right knee. It's a balloon that's been out. It appears to be black in the picture, which means it's old and decaying. So you don't know where they got that. But the tinfoil target in the Ramey press conference is off the shelf. It's brand new, not something that has been out on the desert floor. So that didn't happen. So
okay. It was just an idea. I mean,
yeah,
I have these things come to my mind at certain points. It's just my nature, I think. But I wanted to ask you: do you are you on a wireless telephone by any chance?
No.
Okay. No, your voice for the first time during the whole show started dragging and garbling, kind of breaking up, and I thought maybe you was on a wireless phone and your battery was going dead, but now you're back and you're fine. So who knows? It could have just been a sunspot.
I don't know. No, because this is my office phone, and I think occasionally you're not the first one where I'm talking to somebody and it clicks off. So I don't know what that is, but occasionally there's a click, and then I'm talking to dead air, and there's nobody there. So I don't know what that is.
Well, I think you're not the only one. I think it's part of modern day technology. I just thought I'd check and see.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I'm on a landline.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, that's what we have in store for the Ramey memo. We'd like to get it to this company that does a lot of media and a lot of media work. That they say that they believe they can clean it up and get more out of that.
I hope so.
But there's the case. The Air Force claimed in their report that they tried but couldn't get anything out of the Ramey memo. Well, they didn't try very hard if they claimed they couldn't get anything out of it. That's
true.
Because just with a little photographic software that I bought at Best Buy for $19.95, within 10 seconds I was able to read victims of the wreck. So you tell me,
Yeah, but, people don't look very hard for what they don't want nobody to see.
Right.
Well, wanted to mention to everybody also, once again, that your website is www.roswellinvestigator.com, and the book is Witness to Roswell, and they're doing a whole new entire investigation of the Roswell area now. They're coming up with new information, and I plan to stay on top of this. And pardon me, folks, I think the night air is getting to me. Wanted to remind everybody my website's www.paranormalpalace.com. And if y'all want to join chat, you can get a free account at the website, and it'll let you into the chat. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. And I was going to mention that it's getting to be about 9:30, and I wanted to see if there was something that you wanted to mention that I have not thought to ask you about, because I know you've got a lot of new things going on.
Yes, we already have a publisher for the book that we're going to write, resulting from our Dream Team investigation. We already have a publisher for that. At least one that wants to do it. We haven't signed anything, but they want to do it. Don Schmidt and I are currently writing a book about the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is where all of the Roswell stuff and stuff from any other crash that might have occurred found its way to it. Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio. So we're writing a book about that, and we have a movie in the works.
Oh, I want to see that.
based on our book, Witness to Roswell, and Stan Friedman's book, Top Secret Magic. It's a combination of the two books. That the screenplay is just about finished, and we have a commitment from a famous Hollywood producer, I won't give his name, who has agreed to produce the movie. And the movie will be called, at least the working title is called Magic Men. It's not only about the crash, but it's also about the investigation, sort of like a mystery. And so it's based on our two books, and a famous Hollywood producer that everybody would know the name has agreed to produce the movie.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Now, you're going to keep me posted on the, as everything develops on the movie and all of that, when it's going to hit the market and all of that?
Well, we will put it on our website, www.roswellinvestigator.com. We will keep updating the site because we're pretty excited about this. You never know. They did a movie in 1994 called Roswell. It was a Showtime movie. Produced by the Showtime channel. Excellent movie. I know I'm biased, but it truly is an excellent movie. And but this movie will be one that will be shown in theaters. And so we have our fingers crossed that we will be able to announce something shortly, something additional shortly as to what's going to happen on that.
Well, I know I want to stay on top of that. It sounds very, very interesting. And, it's not often that a movie about aliens or UFOs reaches the theaters, as they mostly go out on DVDs. So I think that's kind of exciting.
Right. Plus some of the, most of the movies with aliens, they're fantasy type stuff, It's fantasy. But this is like a real live thing that happened, and the people that have they call it option when you have a book that they want to make a movie of, they call it optioning. Our book's been optioned, and even those people you would recognize the names of the people who optioned our book. But I don't want to reveal anything until when the time until the papers are signed.
Right. So on this here though, can you tell us if it's going to be a documentary type or?
Oh no, it'll be like a regular movie with a plot, and but it'll be based on fact. It'll be a movie based on fact, but they have to present it in a way that the public will be interested. You don't want to have just like a documentary. The movie made in 1994 was more like it was more like a what they call a docudrama. That's the term I was looking for. It was like a docudrama. It was a story, but based on fact. So, but we'll update the website when we have something more on that. But we're hoping for something soon of a concrete nature that we can report or announce.
And if anybody would like to reach Tom and ask him any questions, you can either leave me a message in my forums here, or you can go to his site, www.roswellinvestigator.com. And he has a contact email address on his site that y'all can send him emails and ask him questions. And he'll get back to you. He got back to me. And I want to thank everybody for coming. And I also want to remind everybody that I'd like to get in a nightly plug for United Paranormal International.ning. The great folks over there. We kind of give each other a plug as we're able to there. And they're, the social network, great people there. There's researchers, investigators, authors, radio hosts, just about anybody with any kind of information. And they're, they have these people in different places around the world working out of the same site, in other words, toward the same goal. Now, there was something else I was thinking about. I would also like to tell everybody, as usual, that I want to thank y'all for coming and participating, whether you just listened or asked a question in chat, called in, whatever, it's all participation. And I couldn't have a show without my listeners any more than I could have a show without my guests. And, you know, Tom, I want to thank you for coming. I really enjoyed talking to you.
It's been my pleasure, Royce.
I had a couple mishaps on my end there, but other than that, I don't think it always goes perfect.
Well, it was perfect enough.
But, yeah, I would love to have you come back in the future, and I'd love to stay updated on all this here stuff going on.
All right. When we find something dramatic, I'll let you know. See,
Okay.
but right now, what we're getting so far. But the thing is, Royce, you never know what the next call is going to get you, and when you least expect it, you get a bombshell. So that's why we keep making the calls.
Kind of like it was for me when I was doing collections or skip racing. But, yeah, and I'm going to definitely keep your email address, and I'm going to try to look up that thing I was telling you about earlier about the memory foil.
Oh,
and
yes.
If I get
By
the
all
link,
means.
I'll send it to you, and you can let me know what you think about it, because I didn't
All
get
right.
a chance to investigate it myself.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I can give you a quick, as soon as I see it, I can give you a quick opinion and, you know, as to what the further action should be.
All right. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and call this a wrap. I guess you've noticed my voice is kind of cracking on me and giving on me. I don't think it can hold up much longer. And
All
I've got
right.
allergies going on here. I'm taking meds for it, but they only work so far.
Okay. I just had my wisdom teeth out, so I'm just recovering from that. So I can imagine.
I think I'd rather have the allergies than the teeth.
Okay.
Good luck
Well,
to
listen,
you.
it's been my pleasure.
You too. Yeah, mine too. You have a good one.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. Don't forget to come back Saturday. We're going to be talking about Transition 2012. And hopefully, it being earlier in the day, my voice will not be cracking so bad as it is right now. I've started some new meds to try to help out with this, and giving it to between now and Saturday, hopefully it'll be better. I want to thank you guys for coming, and I'm going to wrap it right there. Thank you very much.